I think what we need to do is to give Ukraine the capacity to hit the military or defense industry of Russia, and whatever equipment then is needed for that. I think that's the key.
Well, hello, that's me again. Today is November 17th, 2025. It is Monday. I know it's not a good day, but what you see in the beginning is the combination of things which are happening around the world, and we'll talk about it, especially about the new aerospace and defense exhibition in Dubai. And that is very important because obviously there is a lot of fanboys now preparing this kind of the, a butthurt alleviation, if you wish. But that's a little bit later. Let's start with the C-trap. And as you know, that Mr. Zelensky is in France now, or at least he was today, and he signed the agreement to contract, if you wish, to actually buy 100 Rafales from France. Obviously, considering the fact that Ukraine doesn't have money, France cannot produce 100 Rafales anytime soon. So it's a magnificent development. But yes, sure. But he also got himself SMPTs, those air defense complexes, which are absolutely useless, and they have to hide themselves in all kinds of their, what terrain features, such as the forests, behind whatever hills, what have you, because they doesn't matter what they are. They will be, as Mr. Rubio last time stated, once you put it in there, in a week it's destroyed. Simple as that. But yes, he needs to create this picture, and the bunch of the morons have to follow this news, if you wish. But when you have even Mr. Ryobke, the standard cadre terrorist and Nazi sympathizer from the Bild, and that's the guy who obviously has some clout in Germany, even he admits that it's over pretty much. They are going towards the total strategic defeat. Well, I have news for Mr. Ryobke. The fact that he went there and met like some other people, like they met Sirski, all those, American generals. They don't understand what combat data is. They don't understand how to develop it. They don't know how to process it. So I have news. The war was actually won in 2023 decisively. It's just that, as I already stated many times, the bunch of the creeps in the, how to put it, the European and other capitals, they still didn't understand what they were looking at. because they are not great. And we'll talk about this and about Mr. Svechin, but and his, magnum opus strategy, which turns out to be the most important strategic work of the 20th century and even the 21st. But let's start, as I already stated, with the SITRAP on the line of combat contact, or what do we have along this almost, some people say it's 1200 kilometers up to 1500 kilometers, major, huge front line. And here we are. So we'll start with the tally. As you can see yourself, this is the losses for today. As you can see yourself, around 1400. A bunch of the UAVs shut down. There, another 15 tanks and APCs are destroyed. And like it was yesterday, it was counted in the tally. There were two HIMARS M270 vehicles, which are, of course, multi rocket launcher system. They have been destroyed, as you can see yourself, and yeah, they just do not have really good time there. And if we go now and take a look at, for example, what is happening to the center of the preparation and training of the UAV operators in Brovary, as you can see yourself, this is the photo of it. Yeah, Mr. Whoever visited it there, but if you take a look closer, you can see yourself not much left. I mean, there, together with people obviously who were being trained there, including all those NATO instructors. And yeah, the roof essentially is caved. That means there was some serious explosion there, and anybody who was there was either completely, well, disabled or killed. And so that's the situation in terms of the numbers today. And we can also take a look at our friends, Colonel Popov and Marat Khairulin. This is, again, keep in mind, this is the lag of at least 2, most likely 3 days. But this, as you can see yourself, this is Pokrovsk yesterday. So I would say kind of go back probably down to 14th or 15th at best of November. As you can see yourself, Pokrovsk, Krasnoarmeysk, as it's called now in Russian, yeah, it's total under control. Mirnograd, as you can see yourself, which is also called now good old Russian name Dmitrov, is completely surrounded and controlled by Russians. And there were a number of the attacks, as you can see yourself, those blue arrows, which turn back. They try still to relieve all those, whatever is remaining there, because they are mostly those guys from the armed forces of Ukraine. Russians do not call them any other way than terrorists now, which they are. And they are being mopped up in the remaining buildings in the western part of the Krasnoarmeysk and in the Dmitrov. And so, what can I say? All attempts fail. There are now details about this basically suicide kamikaze mission of all those special forces of GUR, which have been completely destroyed. With one guy was taken prisoner of war, and he definitely wanted to leave. But yeah, fanatics, they continue to do this, drug-induced, many barrier troops. So yeah, that's Krasnoarmeysk. And then, of course, we have can take a look now at Orekhov, a critical point in the Zaporozhye. In the orange, as you can see yourself, Russians are already approaching Orekhov. You can see yourself the scale on the left upper corner. And this is, well, that's the continuation towards drive towards Zaporozhye, and eventually liberating the rest of the Zaporozhye Oblast from this Nazi scam, which, of course, as you can see yourself, tries to resist, not very effectively, because obviously you cannot do anything against the total fire domination and of Russian forces. And here is the thing which we need to keep in mind. Apart from the fact that before we go into energy issue and Svechin, that, well, we have now Dubai air show, and not just air show. You can see yourself, this is what Russian exposition looks like at Dubai. And as you might expect, there was already so-called artillery preparation, all kinds of this. Pardon me. all kinds of the people from the media, especially Western media, getting ready to actually, degrade or downplay what they see. But reality is, of course, that they cannot do this anymore because Mr. Bogdan, who already had the training flight on it's the ninth prototype of the Su-57. It's not serial produced Su-57 for Russian Air Force because they fly, that's different planes, but it is still the aircraft which will be in the foundation of the export version of Su-57, which many people want. For example, Algeria wants Su-57. India obviously is very much in this game, and let me put it this way: China would love to have it, but of course they have to also maintain their so to speak, to save their face. They cannot do just directly and say, yeah, we want this too. And but this is the only fifth generation fighter with the incredible, I mean, absolutely unrivaled combat record against the real serious enemy. And this is what constitutes the basically the butt hurt in all kinds of the propaganda by all those fanboys who discuss all kinds of things. However, you can see yourself related to Su-57, and then the rest of Russian hardware, which has proven itself basically unmatched, unrivaled in the real combat conditions. As you can see yourself, the Russians present their first Su-57 with the new IL-51 engine of the second stage. As you can see yourself, those nozzles, those are all aspect nozzles, and they're state-of-the-art mechanical contraption, essentially, which allows the Su-57 have this unrivaled, absolutely without equals maneuverability. Then, of course, you have the S-75 UAV, which is unmanned aerial vehicle, which could serve together as S-70 Охотник, which is the hunter, as the dedicated wingman for such aircraft as Su-57, for example. So there is a lot to be presented in Russia, including the latest iterations of IL-76, which is now it's absolutely new aircraft, glass cockpit, PS90A engines, and so there is a lot to be shown, and there is a lot of interest generated towards this Russian hardware, which of course translates itself into all those export contracts, which many people want to, have. They want to have the best hardware, military hardware in the world. So that is the thing about this Dubai. Now, however, before we go any further, and when we look attentively at what is happening overall, look attentively at this funny thing. This is MrKim.com, one of those smart Germans who states about yesterday, I believe he stated that Euroclear, which is the main bank in Belgium, Euroclear is the thing which moves cash, so to speak, money around the world. In Belgium, announced that it will sue the EU if they pirate the Russian assets after the NABU anti-corruption investigation and one of Zelensky partners fleeing to Israel. The IMF and the EU used the NABU investigation to send no more money to Ukraine. It is over. It is correct. Yes, I mean, even now the dumbest stump politicians in European Union, they begin to understand what is going on. And here comes this story. It's ongoing and on and on and on about those assets. We can take $140 billion of those Russian assets and give it to Ukraine. Then suddenly, no, we really do not want to do it. Then there is another issue. Suddenly somebody comes up in one of the major media in the United States asking the question, where are those $140 billion? They are obviously spread all and deposited in all kinds of the places which we cannot account for, so what have you, And so we have this conversation. Conversation is the conversation is the publication, and so they begin to explain how the reality begins to dawn even on those stupid dumb as stump European leaders and, American leaders too. And so they say that by delaying a decision on using Russia's frozen assets for Ukraine, Europe is quietly hedging its bets. Well, it's not going to help because the decisions on Europe has been already made and in Russia, and there is nothing to be gained with communicating with Europe in any positive way, and Europe remains existential enemy of Russia and Russian people. And so here what they write, it's yesterday, and they I believe it was yesterday, so and but it's fresh. So officially the delay is about legal caution and financial liability. Well, it's officially it's true, that's correct, because can you imagine when it's everything done and over, that Russia will sue the hell out of those people. But here we are. But beneath the surface, a more uncomfortable truth is emerging. Some EU leaders may no longer believe Ukraine can win. First, some EU leaders, they are wholesale dumb. They are morons. They do not understand the first thing about anything related to the modern, essentially, battlefield. They don't understand strategy. And here comes this issue, of which I've been talking non-stop. And that is why essentially the title of this video, which is called worth repeating. Let's repeat some things and let's explain then why, for example, Financial Times, and yeah, this is the UK and generally Western media, mainstream media, establishment media, a bunch of the war criminals and just, the downright one-cell organisms. But here we are. The Financial Times asked the question, can anything halt the decline of German industry? Europe's manufacturing champion is in a free fall. Economists are suggesting radical steps to save what is left. I have news for Financial Times and I have news for Germany. There is nothing which could be done to stop the decline of German industry. And it is a combination of economic, geopolitical, and military factors. It is also the issue of the technology. And Germany stopped being technologically advanced nation, as at least it was portrayed because of its overpriced cars. Well, at least, let's be honest, in 60s, 70s, and 80s, Germany was producing the outstanding cars, probably the best in the world, but not anymore. It's mostly overpriced, over-engineered junk, and which, yeah, you cannot even change oil in some BMW models. You have to go and do it on the dedicated dealerships. But here is the issue. Let's go back to what is worth repeating. And you have to keep in mind, it's not enough just to know about it. You have to understand that you have to cut literally the groove in your brain and follow and guide yourself with what is stated. That will allow you to essentially have a good handle on the events around you. Sometimes even, which I don't do, I'm not economist, I'm not financial specialist, but even sometimes understanding and predicting what's going to happen. For example, if you have some little bit of stash of money saved somewhere, that it will tell you what not to do, such as investing in all those bubbles. And here we have Mr. Alexander Svechin with his magnum opus, which is of course strategy. And look how it relates again to it's not just relates, it applies directly to the whole basically European and Western in general elites. This is who they are, or rather this is who they are not. Practically all of them, including their military leaders. Here is the quote. The first duty of the art of politics with respect to strategy is to formulate the political goal of a war. None of them can do that. Any goal should be strictly coordinated with the resources available to achieve it. No Western politician understand what resources are and how they are attached to the political goals. None. Fact is, most people in Pentagon do not have any idea about it. And so Mr. Svechin continues that the political goals should be appropriate to one's war-waging capabilities. To meet this requirement, a politician must have a correct correct conception of the relations of friendly to hostile forces, which require extremely mature and profound judgment and knowledge of the history, politics, and statistics of both hostile states, and a certain amount of competence in basic military matters. The final statement of the goal would be made by the politicians after an appropriate exchange of views with the strategist, and it should help rather than hinder strategic decisions. As you can see yourself, and this is was written by Alexander Svechin in his magnum opus strategy in 1927, no Western politician satisfied even the remotely, how to put it, relevant criteria which actually Svechin puts forth, and as the result, you have people that, yeah, they are dumb, and as the result, they don't know what strategy is. Most of those strategists in the Western world, including those who teach in, for example, in all those U.S. war colleges, or they teach them in even the, command and staff, general staff colleges, they are not strategists. They are basically confabulators of the military history, and most of them are people with the humanities degrees who won't understand the first thing about modern modeling of the combat and how it affects grand strategy, and how grand strategies are based upon the whole thing, which is we call war. And Svechin warned about it, that you have to have this political elite which is capable of doing this. It's not. In the West, it doesn't exist, period. They do not exist even, as I already stated many times, in the top military brass. They are incompetent, unprofessional, and badly educated. Hence the result. And when we talk and go further into Svechin's magnum opus, you can see yourself that what is he talking about? Responsible politician. Do we have responsible politicians in European Union? No, do not exist, except for people such as Mr. Orban or Mr. Fico. Other than that, there are no responsible politicians. And he says that responsible politicians should be familiar with strategy. Not only the high command of an army must study strategy. A strategist issuing directives to the echelon, which are the direct leaders of operations, should have a clear idea of the limits which are feasible for operational art with the available resources, and have a keen operational tactical eye in order for his forces to operate under the most favorable possible conditions. As have been stated, and I will repeat it again, and that's why it's called worth repeating, none of them exist. Mr. Trump, he has no clue about anything military. You look at Macron, good lord, the guy is a boy, teller boy from the bank. He has no clear understanding what is this. Those people who own them in Europe, for example, and and in the United States, like Rothschilds, all those, families of this, what organization with runs the world, they don't have any idea about what they're dealing with. They simply do not have understanding of the modern world, because you have to have not just financial knowledge, which is easily obtained. Actually, you have to be a very advanced level military engineer to understand that in the end it is the balance of power, it is the correlation of forces and means which drives modern geopolitics. Those people have no idea, and as the result, they misjudged. I am on record many times in all my videos for the last 3.5 years. I constantly reiterate this point. They not only misjudged, they created the world which is alternative universe, which obviously doesn't exist around them. As the result, when we ask about Germany, when we ask about the European Union, what is happening there? Why what is happening there is essentially they're they're circling the economic drain. Well, simple reason. Because money is merely a blood, but you need to have the veins, you need to have the flesh, bones, which are industrial economies, which really have to operate producing something which is tangible. And when they ask about what is happening with Germany, nothing. Everything was predicted, everything was anticipated long time ago. I can give you the date, 2008, the start of the financial crisis, but it was earlier than that when Germany actually, together with other European countries, they now try to correct it. Too late, they will not be able to do so. They basically ignored what I was talking about for years. And here it is. Let's take a look at, for example, this is electricity production. This is the energy data, what is called per capita. Well, per capita, as you can see yourself, the most advanced countries in the world, they produce, as you can see, United States, obviously, that's no doubt, at 12.7 kilowatts, then kilowatt hours. Russia's 8.3 is the highest is Canada, especially because Canada has vast hydroelectric resources. So China trails behind a little bit, but for the most part, it's, well, with the exception, obviously, of the Saudi Arabia, which produces energy which they need to live in the desert. But the rest of the Europe is, if you take a look attentively, it's well, it goes down there, and it's not. And European Union actually is nowhere near in terms of the production of the per capita electricity. And this is just electricity, but we have to take a look at the overall production of the energy, which is, of course, measured in the million tons of oil equivalents. And as you can see yourself, this is 23, I believe, and but take a look. Yeah, do you see any country like Germany or France or anything there? No, we have China, which is, of course, the leader of the industrial world. We have United States and Russia. And India trails while having 10 times the population of Russia, well behind. So these are the top three producers of energy, and that's what defines, I'm sorry to say this, that's what defines in the end the granted, when you add other factors such as the industry, such as science, such as education, development of the human capital, what defines actually development in those countries staying in the superpower league, if you wish. And the question here is it going to change? No, it's only going to develop even more the more energy you produce and the better you are off as the superpower. You may ask, oh, what about Saudi Arabia? Well, they are backwards country, okay, we know that. But again, everything they produce there, what many people do not understand, it is not Saudi Arabia production, so to speak. All of it, from the design to producing the technology to actually operating it, is essentially Western in nature. And in this particular case, the Saudi Arabia is merely a territory which produces essentially what has been conceived and developed by primarily Western countries. And I know, for example, Soviet Union, one of my classmates in my school of Sevastopol, they were actually, his parents were at that time in 1970s developing all kinds of the economic projects, including energy, for example, in what today is United Arab Emirates. And I remember their photographs from that time, from 1976 or something like that. They were just villages, essentially. Nothing was there. And so, yeah, in the end, in those Arab, well, kingdoms, if you wish, they are primarily a result of the Western expertise and Western technology, including Soviet and Russian technology. So, but does Germany have it? No. Does France have it? Well, they have the, you know what, the nuclear power. They have decent, so to speak, production rates for provision of the electric needs or any kind of needs of France for now. But for now, and don't forget that France have been kicked out of Sahel. And guess what? It's Burkina Faso, it's Niger, and those are producing uranium. Well, you might say that what else is there? Well, all over the place, including Russia, the development of the rare earth, basically resources, has started in earnest. And yeah, in the end, we are looking at the new generation of the enclosed cycle of generation of the nuclear reactors, which Russians develop, and they are a long way now on its way to developing this incredible technology. And that means what? Essentially, no waste in closed cycle of production of the energy, nuclear energy. Europe did itself in. They can thank the liberals, or whatever you call it. I mean, just Atlanticists, morons, what have you, globalists. I don't know. There are so many basically titles for those people. As the result, yeah, Europe that's basically the numbers which tell you that you are done and nothing could be done about it. And that's the whole thing. And no matter how they try, no matter how they want to avoid this thing, here is the basically what is the sentence here. And I spoke about it. This was, and again, this goes towards Svechin's strategy and overall development of the strategic vision. Here is Mr. Novak months ago, exactly months ago, well, months and 2 days, it's the 15th of October this year. Novak commented on the reorientation of the Russian energy sector to the east. And Mr. Novak is a man, this is the guy who actually one of those behind the scene guy who runs the well who one of those people who runs the energy markets. And so here we have the reorientation of the Russian energy sector to the east is not a forced step. Read this attentively, is not a forced step but a strategy. The centers of economic growth today are in Asia, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said at the Russia Energy Week. As for the reorientation Russia to the east, I would say that this is not just a fourth step for today. In general, this is Russia's strategy, including it was determined by the president of Russia a long time ago. I can confirm it. It has been happening for the last 10 years at least. We are well aware that the centers of economic growth today are the countries of Asia, he said, Novak. And this is the well, when Russians say that yeah, Europe is just basically not interesting, in terms of the markets. Plus, United States wants to, and they kind of, the only one of very few things Trump may have succeeded is to basically removing Russian energy from the European market. Well, Russia said, okay, we're going to the east. Well, it's all yours. United States will not be able to provide this energy to Europe, and even at that, if to imagine that it can, it will be at least 40% more expensive. Some people say it's actually 3 times more expensive than what Russians have been providing Europe. Well, I mean, too bad, And Germany, as correctly was stated by their economic minister no less 2 weeks ago, lost its competitiveness. Period. And this is not just about Germany. It applies to equal measure to every single European country. They are not sustainable economically. And as the result, well, Russians will enjoy yet another big contracts. You understand? Contracts on the shows are signed after they already have been negotiated and already terms have been settled. And so, what can I say? It was worth repeating today those fundamentals. And I'm not even, again, as I go, I'm not going into the strategic and grand strategic models or how they actually operate in conjunction with the operational models of the warfare. It's a long story. I've been at it for 3.5 years, even more than that, and I will continue to be on that. But this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. I would really appreciate this. So have a nice work week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.